Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to today's episode. The title is The Human Position. And human beings, they know what Starlight is, but why it is a world broadcasting system, why light requires to enter our eyes, the mystery of the cosmos stands. The human position, you can look at this concept in two ways: the position and then the human. The position is the space, is where we're in. It's the meaning being extracted from everything else, or everything else other than the self. You know, where the self attains its separate position. We cannot know we are in a position, if we don't have a mind. And we cannot know we are a human being if we don't have a body. The design is the precondition to the form. I would say that, let me say that again. The human design is a testament to the design. I mean, I'm just seeing it in two ways, guys, pretty much. That we are a subject to comprehend meaning, to be in a sort of story, and we're an object to be the actual human, to be the form. So you can say the body is the character and the mind is the world. You know, first, we can say there was only position. There was no human position. There was no human being to comprehend the position of the world. If we consider there to be intelligence prior to the human framework, we can't be inseparable from the world. We can't even know we're inseparable from the world. You know? Right now, people know they're human. They look in the mirror, they see a human being. But if you were to wonder about the inner constitution and the psyche of people, it is very inhuman. That our nature of attention shifts, that the attention, wherever it goes, it becomes. What does that mean? That means there's this thing in philosophy called Plato's allegory of the cave. And Plato was pretty much like, imagine a bunch of people in a cave tied up. They can only see their shadows. And imagine there's a light behind them. They only see there's a fire behind them. They see their shadows on the wall of the cave, never knowing who they are, what they are. From the beginning, they think they're just shadows. They think their body is the shadow, for example. Then they are freed and they step out, and then they see there was a world outside of that cave. And what I'm trying to say is that there's a world before humanity, before we stepped into the cave of language. Before we became a subject, there was meaningless objective movement here. Just stuff was moving around, and then the human being appeared. Now, what's very unique is that when let's say a human being wants to create let's say you want to create a robot, okay? So you got to think about the hardware and the software pretty much, the body and mind of the phenomenon. We have used our scientific methods very well so far to comprehend the body of an animal. But when this animal lives, and we can even say from a mystical context, we bring in this idea that a human being can selflessly live. That means if you're selfless, it's two things. Either you are the whole world or you are beyond the world. Because to be in the world is the dualism component of it. To be selfless means to notice the self. And its absence before manifestation and after manifestation. You know, this very great speaker, this rabbi, I was watching a YouTube video and he said something very interesting. He said we're packets of energy. And that was a very interesting statement, to begin considering the human position as a container of energy. That we are energy contained in a way. Now, we look at the hardware, we look at the physical laws of nature, we comprehend it to some degree, not all of it. You know, we divide it into the four major forces, gravitational, electromagnetic, nuclear, strong nuclear, weak nuclear. But when it comes to the mind, the software, how different is the software of a computer from its hardware? That means to be a materialist is to equate the hardware as the software to some degree. To be a pure materialist. That means there is no software. Technically, it's only because of the hardware there is a software. But now imagine there was a software that was that had access to multiple computers and only one computer shut down. It's like the main server is intact, and I would say the main server of animate human intelligence is intact regardless of human beings popping out and leaving the system. You know, our sight is simply being. That's the nature of sight. It's just there. Now, we see things to do things. We do things to see things again. This endless kind of dolphin jumping in and out of water, of doing and being. You do some stuff to be some stuff, you are some stuff, and then you do some stuff. It's like pretty much that's the strategy. It's not even a strategy, it's like nature's pattern. Things become, they have potential. The potential is implemented. Once the potential implemented, things become something else. That provides another potential. You know what I would say? I would say that we need light in our eyes before we can talk about purpose. Light is the precursor to worldhood, visual worldhood. So when I wonder about what is the purpose of light, it's in a strange way, it's like the human being is the potential of the light beam. It's like what happens when light beams pretty much when starlight hits a planet, dualistic psychology begins. This constant on and off of light hitting our planet, I mean, that's where our morality comes from. It's from fullness and absence, simply. And because we feel the world is divided, language, you can't use language and not be in duality. Anytime a person speaks, they have no choice. You see, even all the books, what do you call it? Various ancient books, you look at them, they have paradoxical statements. On one page, it is like the truth is kind. On another page, the truth is wrathful. You know, on one page there's mercy, on one page there's wrath. And the reason this is the case is because we cannot comprehend one side of a dualistic system without the other. That means that is the paradoxical nature of ancient texts seems to be a sort of honesty to the writer. For example, in the Upanishads, you know, it seemed like people didn't write back in the day to just entertain. You know, people communicated because truth was an important search before it was all over. If we don't expect anything from the human being, let's say right now, the government of all nations. Imagine, I'm just trying to create a setting here to show the point, but imagine all the leaders of the world went to the world and were like, you no longer need a leader. Imagine we gave the world an anarchist microwave dinner. What that means is people felt free. There was no law, no limitation. What will happen? You know? Sometimes boredom may make a system want to completely destroy itself, but it is error. There are errors in psychology as well, in human psychology. And the error is there only if the person can't backpedal. If you can backpedal, no moment can remain complex. You just you just move your attention towards a level of simplicity, and then begin to branch out the complexity. So it's like I'm looking at the human position. I'm wondering about trying to take one step back from this human ownership of the world from one point of view. And what I see is that there was just unconscious world. There was an unconscious world, a world where there was no, per se, conscious activity to itself. That means one thing is sure, you need to be alive to have consciousness. You know, it's as if consciousness is an instruction for the body to keep going. It's as if once there is a horse rider on the horse knows something is off and follows that moment. But the moment the horse rider takes off, the horse is under no obligation from any sort of mind, you know, superior mind. Aldous Huxley says there are things known and things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception. These doors of perception is where the human position is found, and due to the cyclical nature of reality, these doors are a revolving door. That means existentially, the person's existing. I mean, you still exist. It's like this one-time event. But experientially, how you experience the event is fragmented. It's like our body is a cake, but our psychology has cut up this cake into pieces and named it, and managed to somehow, through that fragmentation of psyche, build a new, subtler world upon the world. To wonder what is the purpose of Starlight, to see light as a software, as an experiential software for the existential hardware, or light is the programmer, the mind is the program, and the effect of the program, we can say, is like the body. Because as I'm speaking to you, these words that I'm sharing, everything I'm sharing right now with the audience, it's occurring from events. I was actually discussing this with someone earlier today, that not everybody can think through image. And if the person has thought through words, I was one of those people where in my youth, my imagination was maybe, I could imagine giant letters on a wall. Like I had seen the teacher write stuff on the blackboard. Like I could visualize certain things that I had been familiar with, but never novelty. Novelty only happened when I stopped wanting language to make the world in a certain way the whole time. When that relationship with language went away, personal relationship with language, because all those people, you see these, I've seen these YouTube debates, they're hilarious. You see this atheist and theist debating. Of course, it's a step of advancement, civil discourse, all great, great, great. But you see suddenly the atheist, like, I remember seeing Richard Dawkins being asked a question from an audience from the thing, and the audience member was like, I believe in the truth of my prophet, and it's no lie, sir. Something like that. And Richard Dawkins suddenly looks at the person and is like, if you were born, if you were born, Richard Dawkins said, if you were born in another time of the world in history, another part of the world in history, you would adopt a different God. So what it is, and I think even Richard Dawkins doesn't realize this, that what it is it's a relationship with a linguistic simulation. A layer of language is being placed upon the world. If the viewer, the unknown viewer, identifies with language, they become possessed. It's ideological possession. It doesn't matter if somebody is ideologically possessed, wanting to, destroy something, or somebody is ideologically possessed to make sure, no, the person they're racing with in a marathon doesn't win. You see, this ideological possession is all about the story that contains how the experience is allowed to happen next. And we have been ignorant of this. That language is living our life for us. When there arises a sort of silence and preferencelessness to see things anew, you know, sometimes it is divine to stare at a blank page. I would personally say that is the power of divinity. It is the potential of manifestation. The point was being made that that person had come and said to Richard Dawkins, hey man, I'm getting an experience of this on my own. Richard Dawkins is saying this is not a collective truth, buddy. You can't use this, just your personal experience, for the collective. Now, where that leaves us is either we take the individual side, the irrational individual side, or we take the rational collective side, you know? And both sides can take a sort of mob mentality, you know? Because this is the case. We're just irrational when we're young. Not that only then, but we start off being irrational. Then as the person accumulates experiences, there is feedback from the realm. That feedback from the realm polishes the person. This is why if you're a fearless kid, you will accumulate way more experiences than that child who just watched things from a distance. You know how many people don't realize they have a mind? I'm seriously saying this. Not to be, not to shout from an ethnocentric, my own ethnocentric canyon, but I will tell you, the mind is not an object and is not a subject at its essence. It is attributeless watching of attributes changing. This is the most basic insight required for piloting in the inner realms. The person has to think of it this way. You're first learning from creatures in your dimension. After you have learned from all human forms, all individual teachers in manifestation, the world becomes your teacher. So what it is we need the rational collective. The rational collective is the center of the circle. The irrational individual should be a circle outside this rational circle, like two circles, imagine, like a bullseye. The center circle is the rational collective. At the outside circle, it's a spectrum. It goes towards the irrational. Do you know? And if we can build a civilization that centers decisions, that it filters collective decisions with utmost rational intolerance, but in the outer sphere of individual irrationality, there is freedom given. Because let me tell you, you have to give freedom to that artist, or the artist will not draw that work that was meant to be once in a lifetime. You see, that's the whole point. Life, ideologies in life being contained, you can say the person's vocabulary or conceptual vocabulary even. You know? People don't realize how much of life is just geometry moving and you're cutting it up into pieces. We are the sculptor of our meaning. That is the whole point of free will. Now, the issue comes that imagine the irrational individual wants to use different colors in regards to communication. It's as if the irrational individual is like, hey man, I want to have freedom. I want to do everything I want. I don't want to just be in an organized box my whole life, you know? So the irrational individual needs, like a painter, access to endless colors. This is why the infinite is more alluring for the individual. Efficiency is more alluring for the collective. That means when you're a group, you care more about efficiency. When you're an individual, you care for greatness. I don't know how to say it. You care for, it's like there's less dimensions. You know what it is? It's like in Photoshop, you have different layers and you can make some of these layers invisible. The irrational individual has decided to deny their potential for the rational collectivity. I can tell you in this lifetime so far, all the people I have met to this point, 3 people I have met just throughout different points in my life, where these 3 people had a hate for the world. And it wasn't a hate for nature, It was a hate for how the human system deceives its own. And it's very strange, you know, it's as if like your younger brother is hitting the neighbor's kid, and you just look at this and instantly it's like you're just looking at the situation, it's like, what are you doing? And all can be done is you just go grab your younger brother and pull him out of the fight. It's like, what's this idiot doing, you know? So it becomes a situation where I would say the irrational individual is the younger brother of the rational collective. The rational collective is not the Orwellian big brother. It's the Mr. Withinian older brother, okay? The speed of using the mind, this may sound strange, but if the person wants to go faster in the inner realms, you got to be slower. The more you go towards stillness and silence, the less life has a delay. That means somebody who you would say, I'll give you an example. Imagine three people, one of these three people is lucky, and the other two are like, what the fuck, how's this person lucky? How's this person this lucky? You know? So those two people are like, hey man, what's up? Like, how are you? Like, what's happening? What are you doing that you're so lucky? You know? And then the person doesn't even know how to explain it. The person's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just being here. You know, I don't even know how it works. It's just, it happens. I guess maybe that's why we call it luck. And then, suddenly, let us say, there was an extraterrestrial sci-fi futuristic surveillance unit observing these three human beings. It would see the one that is luckier is silent. The inner realms have less content, so the world gifts the person. But if the person wants to take something from the world is like, what are you doing? You know? You see, it's strange. When we look at our form, we have to rebel. That what's the purpose of being here if we don't do anything? You know? But when we look at our mind, which is the observer of the form, the whole moment being an instant of observance. You know what's funny? I think every person on this planet should attempt. There should literally be a global homework assignment in all educational systems where the child has to, let's say grade 5. I don't know, let's say there's 5 viewers right now. Let's say grade 5. Grade 5, every child has this global assignment where they have to define freedom. The younger the child asks, what is freedom? What does it mean? What is the point of this word in the English language? You know? When the person wonders about it, suddenly, so you will see, imagine in a classroom, different children coming up, giving a presentation. Freedom to me means this. Freedom to me means this. And everybody's freedom increases because now there's more of a database. I think everybody should do this. Every person on this planet should write an essay on freedom. Just for yourself, not for anybody else's eyes even. You know? Unless you realize you're everybody like the yogis, then you can speak to everyone. If you haven't realized your energy, then it's like, what are you doing? It is just fascinating. That means there could come the most cyberspace digital simulation, but man will be like, why is nature here? We will return. Like, we can't ignore how we are not designed to be serious machines. We're designed to be playful animals. And that's really the frontier where I would say, like, on a physical level, stand-up comedians are dismissed. But if you could see it in the linguistic simulation, stand-up comedians are actually keeping, it is the last stands of the mind in an era where things want to be have a precision of a program. You see, that's the thing. That's what's missing. This is why the entertainment industry has become dull. This is why in all the marketing you see in the world people are doing, they are thinking of the unnatural context rather than the natural. That means I'm just waiting to see which capitalists are smart enough to realize that there isn't just consumerism on a one state of mind of humanhood. That people live in various states of mind. And so it's because we're a natural being, the natural journey is required. We are not like the airbender. We can't like suddenly look at a pond and make it into the shape of our hand, raise a hand out of the pond. We can't do that. But what we can do is, in some sense, build a collective that tries to make up for those blind spots. What that means is that when the house is on fire, the person, it doesn't have the ability to, again, get water from the pond and slam it to the house to get rid of the burning house, but you call like 911. You instantly call, and the water comes from a more different, organized, structured kind of way, you know. Technically, you're not bending water, but because you made the phone call, inevitably in the long picture, your phone call kind of made the water hit the thing. You know what I mean? Like right now, I'm lifting my hands. I'm not an airbender. I'm not like a sage that can control the elements. But technically, my hand is made of elements. So when I raise my hand in the air, that's telekinesis for you. You guys, who knew? Every time I've jumped, I've been lifting atoms into the air. We are reaching a time where we have to shield the simplicity of human nature from an artificial perfection of a complexity that was void to begin with. It needs to be no longer people going and rebelling against institutions. Institutions are part of the cultural program. If people change the overall culture, the institution has to adjust to the culture. Rather than people going and breaking the windows of some building that the poor owner is going to be like, why are people doing this? So the cultural program has to change. Now, how does the cultural program change? There's a scholar I recommend everybody to listen to. Terence McKenna is a person who, the first time I got introduced to this person was I searched a lecture on society, and his lecture came on YouTube. It was the one with the face of Salvador, like a Salvador Dali painting. And I remember, guys, I was in a Starbucks and I was trying to write, something, and I played that and I listened to it. And when Terence McKenna said culture and ideology are not your friends, I was like, oh shit. Why? Because I had realized as a child, I had expected the same emotional understanding from my environment that I had in my inner realms, from the outer realms. And when Terence McKenna said culture and ideology is not your friend, what that means is it is the rebellion of the soul, not in being enslaved in matter, but to being enslaved in the concepts limited to matter. It is the last dance of the unknown. I'm telling you, the language wars haven't ended, but they are close to its end. The language wars are pretty much ever since idol worship. After we worshipped objects, we were like, okay, it's like we can't worship an object. Oh no. Oh, wait a minute. Are those writings? Oh my God. We started worshiping subjects. And we have been worshiping subjects to this day. Do you know? But the issue is that we have also cultivated an ability, a sophisticated ability of observance, and our collective civility gives an ability for us to feel a collective mind before it's here. What does that mean? That means a group of people sitting in the in a group of let's say on YouTube you'll find videos of roundtables of directors, actors, comedians, you know. So it's like all those people who've sat at the table, they're not, if they stop trying to show off to one another, they will realize each person has access to an interpretation of the realm and the current moment that can contribute sometime, somewhere, at some point. That means nobody is stupid. It's just that the moment of their intelligence hasn't arose yet. It's not their time. You know, it's like putting a seed in a soil and coming to the next day and being like, yo, this seed is so stupid, it doesn't grow. You know, why isn't it growing, this stupid seed? And the seed is like, hang on, bro, I just got here. You know? And the gardener's going to be... So that's the thing. To usher the human effort towards an advanced civility. Violence is going to move into cyberspace. That means, imagine couples want to fight. Domestic violence, right? Imagine there comes this virtual reality goggles, okay? Anytime the couple gets angry, they wear these virtual reality goggles or something, you know? And they start fighting in cyberspace. And in cyberspace, it's like a couple just sitting each on a couch or something, you know, at home. Or I don't know, let's say they're standing and... Oh my God. Guys, I'm saying, imagine the couple enters cyberspace and like gods, they're fighting. You know what I mean? Like they're throwing towers and breaking mountains and kind of Man of Steel visual effects and shit. You know? So like in that if violence gets pushed to cyberspace, then human beings still need physical activity. We would have to create new cultural games. And the whole point is you require to evolve the language of an environment to then evolve the cultural habit of that environment. Now, thanks to the internet, the cultural habit of environments and places around the world are being blown up, you know? You know, a person in a non-religious country, or let's say a person in a religious country suddenly has access to the non-religious books, and a person in a non-religious country has access suddenly to the religious books. Do you see? It becomes like this thing where it's like it's not about what cultural program in one snapshot point in this giant line of history has to say or is right. It's all about tourism. We have to build a civilization that is a massive 8 billion person tourist agency. We are touring in manifestation for some time. So as a tourist agency, there is the mindfulness of all institutions of time. That means, isn't it interesting that the employees, to some degree, are bound by time? But when you think about the employer has his own time. The employer sets the time for the employees. Miracles shall happen today. That's the sound of society, guys. You hear it? I can't wait till an advanced civilization gets here and the sound of sirens are gone, you know, because the species knows better. It's inevitable. You know, I'm just honestly an early bird. You know, if the person realizes every day happens once, it means every day is a page you get to write on once. And the cool thing is, the next day you go on to a new page, and when you go to that new page, you can maybe some people who have excellent photographic memory, they remember everything. But for me, I remember through emotions. That means, I'll give you an example, kind of like in speed reading, when a person practices reading fast, what they're actually doing is their eye is, imagine like, uh, what do you call it? Like the width of the page from a horizontal view. It's as if like your eye is going to half the page. Okay, imagine I drew a vertical line and I divided a piece of a page. Each sorry guys, I don't know if this was disconnected or not, but hopefully it's not. Emotions are like a USB drive with, like, I don't know, 800 films in it potentially. So that's what it is. It's kind of like an emotional jumping, and that emotional jumping is taking place due to the inner realms context changing. That means the concept in the outer realms and the inner realms is the same. It's you. It's the presence of attention. But when we talk about the concept, the context of the inner realms is not you. That's the whole point. The whole point of the unknown, that is, it is not the known. And all those people who on this planet, I would say in this plane of visible plane of existence, if you act like the unknown, uh, if you treat the unknown like the known, you don't know it. That means in an observable known universe, we want to know things. But I would say, strangely, the mysteries of the unknown are revealed when the person doesn't want to know, not doesn't want to know in the outer realms, but wants to know in the inner realms. Right now, we don't want to know in the inner realms, so we just want to know from the outer realms. You know, I think this is why the word preposterous exists. You know, somebody says something preposterous. You know what? You know, it's like what? It's like, how dare these words enter my ear? What it is we need a better classification system. A better classification system. Guys, this may be shocking, but I just realized if you put the second letter of the alphabet beside a ladder, what do you get? Really, what it is a changing system. We are changelessly observing it, hence the term unknown can exist if all of knowledge is based on movement and noise. The linguistic simulation is there because of the movement and noise. How a person moves and how a person communicates dictates their life for that day, at least. You know what it is? It's like karma is like they gave a dangerous tool to a young child. And if the young child misuses it, it suddenly thought it could use the tool, and realizes it doesn't have the ability for it. You can say karma is a sort of singular dimensional weakness. It's how something isn't going forth in one level of perception. There's this story, this divine man, found an audience with the universe, with God. And the man said, God, why did you create this insect? Why did you create this worm? Like, why? You know? And God says, the worm asks me the same thing too. Why did I create human beings? And it's this idea that we are actually in an incredible hall of mirrors. And we don't realize it. We don't realize every person we have ever seen in our life has not been them. It has been us through them. We have seen our own reflection of experiences. You know, guys, I want to go into a quote tunnel of the concept love. Let's see what people have said about love in history. I know Attar has this incredible quote where he says, those who know the secret of both worlds know that the secret of them both is love. And when he says love, it is not story-told love. It is experiential, an experiential honest return. I think it was Papaji who said this. What is the purpose of enlightenment or something? And he said to return home. I don't know if it was Nisargadatta Maharaj or Papaji, but anyways. Okay, let's go into this quote tunnel. Anne Landers. Love is friendship that has caught fire. It is quiet understanding, mutual confidence, sharing and forgiving. It is loyalty through good and bad times. It settles for less than perfection and makes allowances for human weakness. Roger de Raboutin de Bossy says absence is to love as wind is to fire. It extinguishes the small and enkindles the great. Okay, I think this is a better song. An Egyptian proverb on marriage. One who marries for love alone will have bad days but good nights. Barbara de Angelis. Love is a force more formidable than any other. It is invisible, it cannot be seen or measured, yet it is powerful enough to transform you in a moment and offer you more joy than any material possession could. Is that right? Hold on, guys. Let me find another website. The website is doesn't have that many quotes actually. Okay. Lao Tzu says, kindness in words creates confidence. Kindness in thinking creates profoundness. Kindness in giving creates love. Guys, the music is going to be on just for the quote tunnel. Okay. Martin Luther King Jr. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Lao Tzu. Love is of all passions the strongest, for it attacks simultaneously the head, the heart, and the senses. Paulo Coelho. One is loved because one is loved. No reason is needed for loving. Leo Buscaglia says love is always bestowed as a gift, freely, willingly, and without expectation. We don't love to be loved, we love to love. The Dalai Lama says love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. Love and compassion is what is keeping our minds alive, by the way. It is how the meaning of life somehow is maintained on the question level, you know? The Buddha says you can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself. And that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Mr. Within would add to this, you also deserve your own honor. That means that is what has missed. What is missing, I would say, where people have forgotten. Honor is a journey. It's these endless small battles that after some point you look back and you feel a little, you feel you've gotten somewhere, you know. But because the road is so long, victory becomes just left to, it's a gift nature gives you, really. Efficient vision is a level right before pure greatness, I would say, where the vision has no resistance to itself, so it is great. Think, you know, it's not just people that outside of oneself that resist who they are. A person can resist themselves. I've had what they call dark nights of the soul, where I have, with the same fierceness of design, I have broken myself. That means it's like, think of it this way, that I've had moments where I have seen existential flaws. That means as if, like, I could tell you, when I say existential flaws, I mean like I have judged my own karma, you know. Literally in my inner realms, there was a time where I could tell you, I was literally, it was as if I had borrowed Thor's hammer and I was breaking whatever good thing I felt I had done, you know. Then in the middle, I realized a loop in thinking. I noticed that my behavior was repeating in my own inner realm's fury. And what happened was I instantly snapped out. I realized, oh my God, endless boxes over the heads of man. What does that mean? That means we are never actually seeing what is really here. We are seeing what we are through everything that is there. Mother Teresa, let us always meet each other with smile, for the smile is the beginning of love. Oscar Wilde, to love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. Okay. Martin Luther King Jr., man must evolve for all human conflict. Man must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. You know, I would say this is the difference between, and of course I'm not a scholar on this, but I have a sort of concluded opinion that I feel Martin Luther King Jr. compared sometimes a lot of people when they look at this, I mean not a lot of people, but I would say like it was something that I saw online as well. And Martin Luther King knew that the outcome wanted to be peaceful, so you had to begin peaceful. Malcolm X was less forgiving, and the whole Black Panther movement and whatnot. So one was, and I would say this is a comment on what I feel to be the difference between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Malcolm X was justified for that moment of history he was in. He was an important person for when he was alive. That means he was responding to the moment. But Martin Luther King, it seems more, at least to me, I feel in his inner realms, he was seeing civilization ahead. The genius of Martin Luther King Jr. in his speech where he says, I had a dream where my children are in a world where they're not judged by who they are. That is the suggestion that Martin Luther King is saying, hey, human beings, look at the future. It's better. Stop being so messed up now. That is one of those algorithms that works. And this is why I was so inspired by science fiction. Because the future is designed to only be better. It's like the point of it. You know, I think of all the stories ever written from the beginning of time till now about how the humanity is not going to make it. And I think about what if there was a parallel dimension where there was a Earth where it was the opposite. We had way more stories on our success and advancement as a species in the space-time continuum than our differences and power games. It's like sometimes you want to look at the world and be like, okay, even if a person chooses to take control and power here, it's like, what is it you're taking power of? It's like trying to own a sandbox. Rather than realize the tourists on this earth require better attendance, better service. That means if the civilization acts great, then the individual has some reference point to become a great individual. So we need, in the next, I would say, 100 years, half of the population redesigning the prototype, the actual blueprints of civilization, the mind of building the mind, designing a new mind to civilization, and half of the people designing the body and the physical realm, you know? There is a transcendental dimension to architecture, I would say, that sometimes when you go see like cathedrals, for me this was one of the most fascinating things about a cathedral, was that it was the wall of the cathedral had a story on it. Like the statues and everything was a story. And I was like, this building is made for a story. And to shift through a tangent, perhaps the purpose of life is a story that has not come yet. We have found our face on earth, but we have not found our face in the sky yet. Everything can update. Everything will update. Everything has no choice. It literally has no choice. It will update. Everything I'm saying now, I will tell you, the same way I am looking at people who were alive before me and I'm seeing their blind spots, there's going to be the future generations who are going to come and see my blind spots. And my whole thing is try to make it hard for future generations to see the blind spots, you know? I'll tell you, there's something cool about, I think it's a personal thing between philosophers in history, that they're sending messages in bottles to one another. That's the most wisest thing one can do. You know, if you're temporary, you leave something behind. That's all you can really do. You know, you can enjoy the system while it's happening, of course. But to realize you can go anywhere, any person can avoid the city and the human infrastructure and think that nature is just the only place to be. But I will tell you, you cannot avoid the planet. And it is a natural event. That means two human beings. There's the concept of natural and unnatural. But if Gaia was asking the question, there would be no natural and unnatural. It would all just be natural. That means what is unnatural to us is the extra. I think this is the thing. I think the unknown is the extraterrestrial presence on Earth. Any human being that is in an unknown state, that is the only thing that seems to be not natural. I don't want to say not natural, sorry. Not the only thing that's unnatural. The unknown doesn't have content. So it can't be natural, or it's a counter story. William Shakespeare says the course of true love never did run smooth. You know, the point is not being a fool in this life. The point is, if any time you find yourself as a fool, learn from it. Then you're not a fool. If you can learn from your own foolishness, then you're not a fool, you know. But if you can't learn from your own foolishness, then it's like the inner realms are driving the outer realms in a way where the person can't see the outer realms for what the outer realms is for itself. Helen Keller says, what we have once enjoyed, we can never lose. All that we love deeply becomes a part of us. Voltaire, love is a canvas furnished by nature and embroidered by imagination. There we go. Furnished by nature and embroidered by imagination. The imagination, that which is unknown to reality, That's the extraterrestrial. Our minds are our symbiosis with the uncommon intelligence of these. Not, let's say if you were Jungian, you don't have to see it as extraterrestrial, you could just see it as part of the unconscious mind. Khalil Gibran says, life without love is like a tree without blossoms or fruit. Jesus Christ, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Khalil Gibran, if your heart is a volcano, how shall you expect flowers to bloom? Another quote from Jesus Christ, a new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. Yeah, the dude's just telling people to relax. You know, Christian wisdom and insight, I will tell you, there's a quote from Meister Eckhart that was so profound. He said, the same eyes I see God are the same eyes God sees me. The inseparability of man, the receiver of the ultimate message, is the ultimate expression. That means I think it's a universal irony that a human being fears judgment only to realize that who are they? From a theological standpoint, everybody's God. If you really see it as that, everything is God's will. But from a secular standpoint, everything is man's will. So you see, we're playing the game of man came first or God, literally throwing a coin flip. And it depends where you're born. If you're born somewhere where you have the coin flip and God is there, that means the universal story owns you. But if you have it the other way around, you can own the universal story. And both modes of perception have advantage and disadvantage. You know, the point is, like, emotions had nothing to do with thoughts ever. C.S. Lewis says, affection is responsible for 9/10 of whatever solid and durable happiness there is in our lives. Audrey Hepburn says, guys, I'm just reading this quote list from a website. Audrey Hepburn says, I was born with an enormous need for affection and a terrible need to give it. Sigmund Freud, we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry says, tell me who admires and loves you and I will tell you who you are. Wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Can you imagine a job interview? That would be a next level question for an employer to ask in a job interview. Tell me who loves you. And the employer's like, excuse me? It's like everything should be there on the resume. And the person's like, no. Tell me who loves you in this world. You know? And imagine the person says, you'd be like, no way. This corporate culture cares about love. It's like, can you imagine the ethics of all corporations, the ethical organization of all organization becomes love your world while you're in it, the only commandment you need. Because it is here for something that incredibly can never be a thing. We are an event. We are, like, it is true, I perceive myself as, in my outer realms, as an biological organism. I'm breathing right now. I'm seeing things, you know. I'm experiencing some dimension to the livelihood. And here's the cool thing. When you don't want something more than the system can give you, you can actually very simply coexist with the system. That means the way is society, in many societies I would say, there is this strange pattern. It's like an algorithm that it's going to become outdated soon, I think. But it's that people are judging momentarily. But a person is not just one moment. How many moments? It's like if a person is one moment, then what's the point of their whole memory? You know? Them having memories. A person is not just one moment, you know? This is why I've had times where people have kind of like gone into an argument, like in the chat section with me, with something I've said, and I've asked them, how do you know? You know, and here's the thing, guys, let me tell you, this sets out a lot of things in society, that if the person cares to reinvent the wheel, they will not be gullible. That means certain things, like here's the thing, if you don't want to design a better wheel, sure, don't reinvent the wheel. Just go with the program, you know? A lot of animals in nature just go with the program, never questioning if there's something else. A lot of animals. Like you look at insect life, they don't question. Do you see an insect, you know, wondering about the existence, you know, of reality? It's like only man has gotten to this point, and the reason we're at this point is because there's something uncommon about everything that is common to us. And it is our participation in the living event. That is the greatest thing you can do as a human being in this life. Realize you are alive now. Now is the final hour. Now is the only hour. Well, from the now, the concept of the hour has come. Will Durant says, the love we have in our youth is superficial compared to the love that an old man has for his old wife. Yeah, the love of youth is more like experiential. You know, you play until you realize mastery is possible. Then you become serious with your playfulness. And then once you master the simplest states of your own being, the complex states are much more easier to handle. That's simply it. That means nobody, the only sign of lack of intelligence is the lack of effort. If we were immortal, imagine 8 billion beings were immortal, we could achieve anything literally. Like in regards to just endurance wise. Thomas Aquinas, love takes up where knowledge leaves off. Wow. Guys, I hope one day in the future we'll have a radio station where it's just endless quotes. You just turn it on and it just says quotes from, I don't know, Buckminster Fuller. Like an hour of just, you know. Here's the thing, entertainment, I think, has forgotten that the greatest entertainment is ability. People want what can allow them some sort of advancement. It's a very strange position. It's like a miracle that is Like I would say the first miracle is how there's something here. The second miracle is how there's emptiness. Oh my God. It's like, what does that mean? You know, it's like I can tell you, normality became a hoax when I realized we're 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Nothing is normal about existence because it's changing. The normality is not defined the same. That means for me, it's people can act like they believe something, but let me tell you how it is impossible to truly believe. I don't want to say truly, but experience, like I'm talking about ideological belief, because you change as a being and so does your world. Now, because we don't see the change of the world that quick, right? We notice how we change more, let's say, quicker than the world. Because the person is self-centered, let's say, in the type of civilization we have now. Okay, so I'm back, guys. Let's see, where do we go from here? Okay, let's say that the human position is temporary. So if we want to comprehend, regardless of what the design, what the form-based um, uh, regardless of the Aristotelian formal cause of the human design, if we look at the position where things are, we would see that because it's a changing world, that whole temporary notion, I'm saying like the position is being studied before the meaning, like where meaning is coming from. So because our position is temporary, we have to comprehend the nature of what is temporary. And the options of the temporary is either move while you can, or move by all you can see, or be moved by all. Move while you can, or be moved by all you see, by all that is, or be moved by all that you can see. So pretty much it's a push and a pull. All of human life is coming to this. Sorry, not push and a pull. It's push and a stop. It's like something is moving, then something is suddenly stopping. If I stop being an individual, I will feel more either, I will feel the world is just here. If I don't implement my free will, I will feel everything is nature's will. But if I implement my free will to and max it out and rhythmically abide with a sort of honest walk in the inner realms, honest piloting in the inner realms, then I will tell you it's as if man will realize also his conscious, or the max, the most more advanced version of our free will is in harmony with nature's will. That means I wouldn't be surprised that we might reach a point in the future potentially that we will become so inseparable from nature. It doesn't matter. It's like we're in one moment we're in our, let's say a child goes into a zoo. Okay, this is without any sort of technological um, this is without anything digital, just naturally. We will be a biological being that, let us say the young child goes to the zoo and suddenly looks at an animal and suddenly gets a vision of from the animal's point of view looking at itself. So I'm saying, imagine we reach a point where we realize the mind is this endless field of energetic opportunity, but the body is a sort of temporary position. It's the form changing from, form to form. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it changes from one form to another. So technically, in one dimension, it can. In a way, it can. It's all. In a way, it's always being created and destroyed endlessly, cyclically. On another way, it's just endless. And I will tell you, energy is awareness. That is like the modern Satchidananda. I remember I wrote this book called Memories of Starlight, this poetry collection. And I had come to see that we are really memories of starlight. We are light and man. We are neither just man and we're neither just light. We are neither the illusion. We are neither the truth that counters the illusion. We are now, the unknown now. That's really where playfulness comes from. Because if the person knows what's happening, they're just seriously awaiting it, really. That is the most sort of greatest peak of pleasantness, kind of honors sigh of relief. You know, that's like the serious man's comfort. But I would say the playful man's seriousness is when the playful saw the burning world and then used those tears to extinguish the flames. In reality, nature was here first. In the same way we see that objects, it's like we are an atomic hallucination of humanhood. Simultaneously, we are the unknown character in the story we have picked up. And so the honor of the multidimensional is selfless. Ram Dass has this saying where he says, when you embrace the tree, you are embracing yourself. And if we reach that point, I mean, honestly, way before we can reach that point, there needs to be some sort of philosophical, poetic, artistic revolution or something. Pretty much philosophy has to come and shield art from dogmatism, from the barks of dogmatism, you know? The question comes, shall we allow ourselves to see the question anew, or shall we obsessively search for an answer only in a certain way? Should we give the world a permission to change in our minds, or should we keep it stuck? Should we receive the world like a building, you know? Or should it be natural? You know, sometimes when I feel I am very temporary as a being, like just my biological existence is like 100 years is nothing. And so when I wander through my temporality, I get inspired to contribute to the eternal. But there's moments that I find myself in the opposite side of the spectrum, in states where I just feel selflessly, I feel my moment, my whole moment is here before the content, so the contents are no longer afraid of how the whole moment is. And in those states, I would tell you, it's like you just look, you just bow to the temporary realm. Because you know what it is? It's like we don't see it, but there is an endless Colosseum. Imagine an invisible Colosseum around this planet. And the whole universal sector is watching. Honestly, the advanced civilization is the greatest performance of mankind before the curtains of the void are pulled. The meaning of life is to perform. with an awareness pre-form. What is the purpose of Starlight? For the human position to roar, as now is the only heaven. It is the hidden heaven on earth. That every moment of our lives, to the mind, everything has been everything. But to the body, it is a traveler through many rooms, many elevations. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. I'm going to be in the Discord for 10 minutes. Whoever's interested can join. The link is in the description. Blessings. And one last thing. There was this quote. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. The quote is from Thich Nhat Hanh. We can continue to learn generation after generation, and now is time to begin to learn how to love in a non-discriminatory way because we are intelligent enough. But we are not loving enough as a species. So it's just like a volume knob, just amp up the love, and it's like, oh shit, advanced light. There's a quote by Viktor E. Frankl, I'll read this too. In a position of utter desolation, when man cannot express himself in positive action, when his only achievement may consist in enduring his sufferings in the right way, an honorable way, in such a position man can, through loving contemplation of the image he carries of his beloved, achieve fulfillment. That's the honorable man's route, really. The honor is preparing. It's as if the inner realms fearlessly await the karma of continuity. What if everybody realized they are the ink that history is being written in? You know, guys, I'll share this story. There was a sage who was a farmer. Now, these two friends go to the sage, and the sage needs help for his crops, and he says, "You guys stick around. I will give you a teaching, and you guys help me." What do you call it? He gives one fifth of the field divides it in two and gives it to both of the farmer, the two people who had come there to see the sage. And he says, "You guys help harvest my whole field, and then you guys can take your sums of amount of harvest from my field, like from those two allocated spots, each, like one for each person." And so the guy says, "Just work honestly, you know, and I will keep, giving you teachings or something, and you can harvest the field." Now a whole day passes. The sage is an old man. He's watching this. At the end of the day, both people who had come to, they were there working for the sage. They, at the end of it, come, and the first one comes and brings the part of the field that is for the sage, and says, "Sir, I honestly work, and this is exactly it, and this is my half, and thank you for this gift, and I'm very, very appreciative, you know." And the sage says, "I was watching you, you were honest, I know you're telling the truth, you know." Now the second one comes, this is the moral of the story, the second person comes. The second person puts in front of the sage the part that was allocated to the sage, but also puts his own part with the pile of the sage, as if he doesn't want what the sage has given him. And he looks at the sage and he says, "Thanks, but I am here to see you, to find that pearl. I am not here to get something, do you know, from the outer realms," something like that. And so there was something very key about that we have to have. It's not just, it's like we have to have the class as a species to make Buddhic mindfulness second nature globally. Just the idea of mindfulness, the idea that conscious breathing and observing the moment before any action can add to the quality of how the moment happens. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Much blessings and namaste. The mirror of nature never lies.